Requesting connection. Established. Encrypted. We're live. The show you've been asking for. Advice, technology, and community. Linux first, all others second. This is Ask Noah.
Live from Altispeed Technologies, the Ask Noah show starts right now. This is the show where we came to do all the things on Linux they said couldn't be done and teach you how to do the same. The phone lines are open this hour. To be a part of the program, it is a free call, 1-855-450-NOAH. That's 1-855-450-6624, or send an email to live@asknoahshow.com. My name is Noah Chalai. I am your host. Delighted to be here with you as another episode. The Ask Noah show kicks off this hour. I just have to point out, in our chat room, our chat room gets so excited. If you're not part of the chat room, then you're missing half of the show, basically, because the other half of the discussion occurs in the chat room. Now, I try to call out the chat room anytime I can, anytime I happen to notice it. As I was doing the intro, I look over, and people are wondering, is the show happening today? And I'm like, I don't know. I think it is. I showed up. Is something not going? And then I realize, they're just anxious. Show starts at 6:03:30. That's how radio works. Hey, good evening, guys. Delighted to be here with you. We got a lot of stuff to get to. Qubes OS. If you haven't played with Qubes OS, you have to go check it out. What Qubes OS is an operating system for the privacy-minded computer enthusiast that wants to do things in the most secure way possible. On Sunday, on Destination Linux, we had a guy ask, he said, what do you recommend I do for checking banking? And the recommendation that I gave him at the time was, I would use a dedicated device. And of course, the reason that I use a dedicated device is because it lowers the attack vector. And what Qubes OS is doing, they're trying to solve that problem in a slightly different way. One of the chat room participants actually asked, well, couldn't you just use a VM, or couldn't you just use some sort of containerization technology, is what they were implying. That's what Qubes OS does. It takes containerization and applies it to daily desktop computing environments. The problem with Qubes OS, or the problem with really any operating system that tries to compartmentalize stuff, is when you start dealing with the display. And so Qubes OS is taking on what they're calling the GUI domain. If you're not familiar with Qubes OS is a security-oriented, free and open-source operating system for personal computers that allows you to securely compartmentalize your digital life. One of the big things coming soon in Qubes OS 4.1 is the first public version of the GUI domain. The next step in developing the graphical hardware and the display management over the whole system. Very briefly, the GUI domain is a cube separate from DOM0 that handles the display-related task and system management. One of the biggest security concerns at the moment for Qubes is how much power is in DOM0. Once a person has access to that, they basically can do whatever they want. And while they separate it effectively from what is running inside the application cube, DOM0 is still a big, bloated, complex domain that performs many functions. It handles managing other domains, displaying graphical interfaces, multiple devices, including audio, etc., etc. So what they have tried to do is mitigate many of the GUI-related risks. And you can get so far, and they've done the best that they can, and they explain all of this in great detail in the article that we'll have linked for you in the show notes at podcast.asknoahshow.com. But the long and the short of it is DOM0 is responsible for a lot of stuff. And so they would like to get further compartmentalization, further separation. So the current model in which the GUI and the administrative domains are both of those are contained within DOM0. And it provides too little separation, they say, and the root exploits seem to be inescapable in a system as monolithic as Linux. So what needs to be ready? There are two big issues that were preventing them from solving this problem. The previous Qubes architecture that needed handled for effective approach to the GUI domain, how the GUI protocol relied on DOM0 level privileges, and how managing anything in the system required DOM level access to the hypervisor. They say, quote, in brief, it consists of a GUI agent and a GUI daemon. The GUI agent runs in a cube and connects to the GUI daemon in DOM0, passing a list of memory addresses of window buffers. as the GUI daemon is running in DOM0 with privileged access to everything, it can map about any page in Cube's memory. You can see why this might be a bit worrying. Access to memory is power, thus DOM0 is all-powerful. It would be far worse if we tried to duplicate the architecture and make our own GUI domain in a cube with the same memory-related privileges. It would just result in 2 DOM0s. Rather than being reduced, the attack surface would actually be increased. In the upcoming release of Cubes 4.1, they're going to change this protocol to a more flexible form. And so it will no longer use direct memory addresses. Instead, it's going to use an abstract mechanism in which the cube has to explicitly allow access to a particular memory page. And so in their current implementation under Zen, they use the grant tables mechanism, which provides a separate memory allocation API and allows working on grants and not directly on memory pages. Other implementations will also be possible, whether for another hypervisor, for example, if you're running KVM, or a completely different architecture, not even based on shared memory. I don't know a lot about the inner workings of cubes and how they've managed to leverage container technology, and how effective it is. But I do know that there are a lot of people that are looking into it. I saw an interesting interview with Edward Snowden, and he was talking about his fascination with cubes and how he believed that there was a contrast between the kind of desktop environments that Tails offers, for example, and the kind of desktop environments that Cubes offers. And I understood what he was talking about. It's one thing to have just Tails and have it available, and then it's an amnesic operating system, so it disappears as soon as you turn the machine off. And that's good if you're trying to do one simple task. You wanted to review a file, you wanted to copy one from one to the other, but you're not making persistent changes to the computer. What about a machine in which you want to install the operating system onto the hard drive? You want to have some presence there, but you want things to be separated out and you want some compartmentalization. I think this fits the bill rather well. And so if you've not played with it, these people are working their tails off to stay at the very forefront of security issues and try to get them solved and try to do the best they can to mitigate the risks. And so as I'm watching, it's interesting because as I'm watching people emailing shows, asking in the chat room, had lunch with a buddy of mine today who up until I'd say maybe 2 months ago was very, very, I don't have anything to hide. What do I care about privacy for? And listening to him today, we were having a conversation and he just said, these are some of the concerns I have. Which one of these concerns are well-founded and which ones are not well-founded? I said, yeah, all of them are actually. A lot of what he was concerned about are real threats, real privacy threats, and Cubes is doing what they can to combat that. And if you're looking for an operating system, Cube should definitely be on your list of ones to try to protect your privacy. Now, I wouldn't necessarily suggest that you use Cubes as a daily driver. I mean, if you can get away with that, more power to you. I would find it personally very, very difficult to exist on an operating system in which everything is too compartmentalized, because just a lot of work is going onto the internet, searching for things, downloading things, arranging things in documents and files and sending them back up. Again, 1-855-450-NOAA, that's 855-450-6624. The email, live@asknoahshow.com. Add your voice to the conversation, make your voice heard. We often talk about free software on Linux, and what was announced was Waveform Free, a professional digital audio workstation with Linux support. Now, here's why that's important. We have a number of different options on Linux. And audio, frankly, we probably have the better hand of the cup. There's a lot of options, really good, solid options, to include Audacity, for editing audio on Linux. I don't know that there's a lot of people out there saying to themselves, I wish I had I wish I had more tools to edit audio on Linux. We're pretty well covered. Video editing, we could have a couple more tools. That would be great, or at least flesh out some of the tools we have. But it's good to see that mainstream companies are now entering this space, and they are trying to compete with those open source alternatives, with those open source platforms. And the latest is Waveform Free. You've heard of Traction T7, which is considered one of the best free digital audio workstations out there. And inside of the professional world, you have things like Traction and Sonar and Pro Tools. Typically, the way that Traction has done software, they release new versions of Traction, and then they take an older version every few years, and they release it entirely for free with no limitations. Now, I want to point out, you can purchase Traction for Windows, Mac OS, Linux, and you pay for the software. It's closed source, but you can pay for the software, and you can have the latest version. But they take some of the older versions, and they release them for free. I need to separate here free as in beer from free software. This is not free software. It's not open source. This is closed source software, but they're giving it away for free. And they were due to release the next free version of their software, but guess what? It's not going to be Traction T8 or even Traction T10. Instead, they're issuing a brand new version of software called Traction Waveform. Now, Waveform 11 Free is pitched as their free, again, as in beer, replacement for T7. They have links to Traction T7 that now redirect to the Waveform landing page. Waveform has, this is from their site, Waveform has more capabilities than most enthusiast producers will ever need. There are no restrictions whatsoever, unlimited track count, popular plugins, and enjoy deeply capable feature sets, reads the official blurb. Audio enthusiasts no longer need to wait for an older release to be gifted, as the current version with an improved UI, better performance, multi-monitor support, new samplers, and other tools, and a VST sandbox, no crashing the entire system every time an instrument goes rogue, is now available. But there is a catch. There are Traction Waveform Free has a couple of limitations. While the free builds boasted all of the features akin to their Pro version, there are a couple of things that are different. For instance, there's no track editor. There's no arranger track. There's no quick actions. There's no layout customization. Metering is also less visible, and the mixed DSP are behind paid-only curtains, as well as a couple of other functionalities, such as some of the DSTs and so on and so forth. Now, the good news is maybe you don't need DSTs. Maybe you don't need the plugins. Maybe you just want to open up a piece of software and cut audio. And if that's the case, Waveform Free is a great way to go. The other thing to consider here is when you start working with industry standard software, even if you pay a penalty in the form of licensing, and even if you pay a penalty in the form of your wallet, there is something to be said about the fact that you're able to exchange these formats with other people that are using that software without having to actually install Windows on your laptop. One of the things I see erupt on the forums all the time on the internet that we're really bad at doing as Linux users is a company comes to Linux and says, here's our product on Linux, which is something that we should all go, thank you, company, for making your product available on an operating system that has less than 10% of the market share. We really appreciate you doing that. Instead, people throw their arms up and go, it's not open source. Let's worry about getting people onto a platform where they control the platform itself, where the platform itself is not spying on them and collecting their data and collecting telemetrics. Then we can go back and revisit the software licenses of all the software that people put on top of their laptop. And by the way, some of you who are complaining about the fact that these companies are releasing software for free because it's not open source are the same people that have Steam installed on your laptops. Or desktops, gaming machines. See, this is why I'm not a gamer. I think there is bigger repercussions to this, because what this article tells me is that these companies are responding to FOSS. They're responding to the fact that there are people out there that are offering their services, and you're getting OBSs to come out, and you're getting the VLCs to come out, and you're getting the Audacities to come out and become these de facto standards in their industry. These companies are looking up that are used to charging money for the software and being the dominant industry holders and going, why is everybody using their free platform? We need a free platform. So, do we win? No. Is it, have they gone open source? No. But we are at a point now where people are paying attention to the software landscape and are evaluating their options out there, and these companies need to compete at least on a monetary level, even if they're not competing on a software licensing yet. Again, I think down the road they're going to find that if they're not paying if they're not charging exorbitant fees for their software, they can't pay exorbitant fees to developers. Thus, they have to start relying on the community and bringing the community in on the other side of the curtain. Again, 1-855-450-NOAH. That's 855-450-6624. The email, live@asknoahshow.com. Chaz calls us from the New York quarantine. Hey, Chaz, welcome to the Ask Noah Show.
Hey, Noah. You can actually call me KD2TMR if you want to now.
How's it going there? I mean, I'm feeling for you guys. That's got to be rough.
It's crazy. Most of the cases are concentrated downstate, but since downstate kind of runs the entire show, we're stuck in quarantine as well. You can't go anywhere. Bars, restaurants, takeout only. And it's a very long list of so-called essential employees, and luckily I'm on it over at L3 Harris Corporation.
Are you really?
But, yeah, it's rough. Yes, actually.
Fantastic. Well, that's fantastic. Cool. I suppose. I mean, they need. Do you guys do public radio and public two-way radio and stuff like that?
Yes, it's considered national defense and public safety. So,
okay.
Yeah.
All right, sounds good. Well, what can I help with today?
Well, my X260 picked the apocalypse to die.
Oh.
Yeah. Now, there was a spill last night, so I think that's what the reason behind it was. But
okay.
I did, within a few hours before that happened, install Farron OS on it. So I just want to make sure there's no recorded cases of Farron OS completely trashing a laptop, right?
None.
Okay, good. Now, on to the real question. I am replacing it with a 270 because USB-C has spoiled me. And I pulled the RAM module out because my 260 is a 16 gig and my 270 is going to be an 8 gig. And while I was at it, I grabbed the SSD, the internal battery, and obviously the external battery as well. Is there anything else that I should try to salvage from this thing before I take it? Well, I'm not taking it anywhere.
I'll be honest. I'll be honest with you. So, like with the 260s, right? In working good condition on eBay, you'd expect to get $250 out of it. So, if you want it for your own collection, so you have a couple spare parts, that would be one thing. Or if any of them are interchangeable, I don't remember if the batteries are. They might be, and certainly the power supplies and stuff would be. But if you're not going to do that with it, I suppose you could part it out and sell it and sell the parts on eBay, but it would be an awful lot of work for not an awful lot of return on your time.
Yeah, I don't trust my eBay rating is too good to risk selling anything from this laptop, but I did at least want to swap the RAM module out, and I figured, well, while I got it open, let's call up a guy with some hands-on experience.
I tell you what, here's what I'd do if I woke up in your shoes, Chaz. If I woke up in your shoes and I had a laptop that took a spill, I would be honest about it. It would be the first thing in my description, but I would put it up on eBay and say, as is, no guarantees. This is what happened to the computer. If you want to buy it, and put $200 your best offer and take whatever the first guy offers. There are a lot of people like my friend Ryan who enjoy fixing that kind of stuff, who enjoy taking that kind of thing apart and pulling it apart and go, I could get a $600 laptop for $200. I'd be happy to pull that. There are people that will do that. And so you'd be doing a service to the e-waste community by sending that through and letting somebody else hack on it. Again, if you look at it and just say, well, it's kind of a risk for me because I don't want to imply that this computer is any better shape than it is. I would just disclaim that in the description. Hey, this is what you're buying. If you're interested, great. If not, no big deal. If it doesn't sell in 30 days, then I'd chuck it.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I mean, I took everything I wanted out of it, so I might just do that.
Well, I appreciate the call, Chaz. I will talk a little bit more about this towards the end of the episode, but we've got a ton of new content to help people quarantine and chill over at Mind Drip Media. So head over to youtube.com/MindDripMedia and check some of that out. James calls from California. Hey, James, welcome to the Ask Noah Show.
Hey, Noah.
Hey, how we doing?
How you doing?
Good.
Pretty good. So, I've got some medical problems, and so the only way I can use a computer is by remoting into it from a phone.
Okay.
Right? So all the computers I use have VNC running on them. It's been a long time, like a year or more, since I've been able to use Linux of any kind. I used to use Ubuntu I forget, like the pre-GNOME version, I could install it, and you just check a box, VNC server's ready to go, and I can remote into it and do my thing, right? Because I got to get somebody else to sort of, operate the computer to install everything. So my question is, I want to get back with like a new, modern version or, latest version of any kind of Linux. But I'm looking for something that I could just easily, have somebody else who may not know anything about it, just install it and very simply get VNC server up and running so that I could just hop in and start doing my thing.
Yeah. Okay. So let's start with this. You're going to have a difficult time ever finding a distro pre-installed with VNC because it's a security risk, right? Nobody wants to have VNC on a computer if they weren't aware that it's running, and it's typically something that you want to run only on a closed network. You don't want to go over the internet. I'm probably telling you stuff you already know, but I'm explaining that to explain as to why you're probably not likely to find something with VNC pre-installed. For options as far as the quickest, most easiest way to get VNC installed on a computer, the easiest, if you're just talking about the easiest way to do it, the only project I'm even aware of that automates a VNC install as part of the operating system loading is the Rivendell Appliance Suite. It's something not designed for daily computing, but it is something that you can literally take an ISO and boot it and have a VNC server by just checking a box that says enable VNC server. So does that most directly answer the question as you've asked it?
Yeah. So then two questions. That Rivendell, I never heard of it. I'll check it out. Would that get me once I got in, I have a desktop, web browser, and maybe like some basic packages I could install kind of thing, like a package manager?
It's essentially, it is a CentOS 7 desktop. That's what it is. It's a CentOS 7 desktop with a bunch of packages into it. It just so happens that their pre-bundled appliance DVD, their ISO that you can download and just install, happens to have the package for Tiger VNC Server in it because that's part of their application suite, and it's for a number of reasons it's already included in there. That's the fastest, most direct way I can point you to get a distro pre-installed with VNC. Now, having answered the question as you've asked it, let me make a couple other recommendations. Tiger VNC, setting up VNC server is simple. It's very, very simple. And so what I would like to do with you, James, I'd like to put you back on hold. I'd like to have Sarah get your phone number. What we'll do is I will pair you with one of my techs at Altispeed Technologies, and they will walk you. They will go and set up the VNC server for you on a desktop, and then they will document that process and send it to you in a complete idiot's proof guide. Because that's the way I do documentations, James. If I go in to do something, I only want to think about it one time. I only want to solve the problem one time. The next time I come back to that, I should just be able to monkey see, monkey do. Because I've already learned how the process works. I already learned what all the commands do and why they're there and why they're in the order they're there. I don't need to do that the next time. The advantage to that documentation in a person in your position is you can hand it to some guy on the street and say, hey, I want you to follow these instructions exactly as they're written. And he can just monkey see, monkey do, type the things that we say in the guide, and you'll have a VNC server set up. And that way we'll get you back on Linux, and we'll get you back connected with the ability to do that remotely from your phone, and you'll have a way going forward to make sure we'll do it with something like Ubuntu, so it's very generic, and you'll be able to even do some distro hopping and jump from desktop environment to desktop environment and see what works best for you.
Oh, that'd be sweet. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet. So hang on the phone. Don't hang up. I'll put you back on hold. Sarah will grab your contact info, and we'll get a ticket at Altispeed opened up for you, and we'll see if we can get to that probably this week. It's, as you might imagine, working in IT during the coronavirus is both a busy and a slow time. It's busy in that there's a bunch of people that want remote connection stuff set up. It's slow in that nobody's doing projects right now. Again, 1-855-450-NOAH. That's 855-450-6624. The email, live@asknoahshow.com. Mike calls from Connecticut. Hey, Mike, welcome to the Ask Noah Show.
Thanks, Noah. I've got some questions for you on setting up Capsman on MikroTik routers.
Okay.
I've been listening to you off and on this show and some of the Jupiter Broadcasting shows for a while. And based on some of the stuff I heard, I got some of these Microtech routers, and I live in a rural plot of land, and I've got a router in my house, but I've also got one in a barn with some Ethernet cables run out to the barn, and then another one that's in a screened-in porch to provide some coverage in the yard. And right now I'm just duplicating Wi-Fi setups on each of these things, and I'd like to get the Capsman to function and work, but so far every time I've tried, I'm hitting a stone wall, and I can't get the access points to connect to the manager.
Okay.
Part of it.
Well, let's start with a couple of things. So first of all, there are some hard limitations on Capsman that you should be aware of. Now, I doubt you're hitting any of them, but 32 radios per cap, 32 virtual interfaces per master radio interface, right? As far as getting them to connect, the best thing that the thing that I would suggest is going through the wiki, the Microtech wiki, and I will have the exact configuration article for Caps linked in the wiki, or for their wiki linked in the show notes at podcast.asknoahshow.com, so you can check those out, and that will probably help. Here's the thing: if I woke up in your shoes, what I would choose to do, I wouldn't solve this problem with Capsman, and here's why. Their access point management is very much secondary to what Microtech does very, very well, which is routing inexpensively. If you want the Microtech equivalent of inexpensive but very, very good performing central management wireless, look at Unify. You can buy a Unify access point. You can buy them used for under $100. You can buy them brand new for $140. You can buy the small little cloud. You can either just install the distro yourself and run the controller on any Debian box, or you can buy their Cloud Key, which is like a $100 little thing that just hangs off of your network and has a built-in web UI. And from there, literally your job, once you get the network set up the way you want it, is you click adopt, and every access point will automatically suck in the network settings, automatically be distributed, and automatically respect each other and their channel separation and all of that. I've used Capsman a little bit when we were working with the WISP. I've not dealt with it extensively, and so I don't have a tutorial or a guide that I can reference, other than every time I've had a question about Microtech in general, their wiki has been a phenomenal source of information, because it literally, their documentation is what I was just describing to the last caller. It's a lot of monkey see, monkey do.
Right. Okay. I will take a look at their wiki, and I'll also investigate this Unify access point and some of that stuff.
Okay. Sounds good. Yeah, I appreciate the call, Mike. 1-855-450-NOAH. That's 855-450-6624. The email, live@asknoahshow.com. Bruce joins us in our interactive mumble room. Hey, Bruce, welcome into the Ask Noah Show.
Hey, how's it going?
Pretty good. How can we help?
As many people have done, last weekend, a lot of churches that could pivoted to doing online services, and we were one of them. And so, me being the technical guy of the congregation was able to facilitate it. But sounds pretty good. But the video, the camera we had, I tried some streaming before, and we just never really, put too much effort or money or anything into it. But now that we're forced to do it, I actually sent an email with a link to the video. The video's kind of grainy a little bit. It's a 10-year-old camcorder, and I've got the paradox of choice problem where there's a million cameras out there, and I'm not sure, first of all, what I can even get my hands on in short order or mailed to me. But I just wanted some guidance on what kind of class of camera for I'm just doing a standard OBS with a USB dongle and video composite in on an RCA.
Okay.
So I'm just looking for some.
So
cut down the options a bit.
Sure. So your first issue is resolution, right? What we want to do is we want to capture as high of resolution as we can. In other words, we want as many dots to make up the image as possible, because the more dots we have, the less grainy something looks. The issue with what the way that you're doing it now is when you're using a composite connection like that, you've got like the little yellow, red, and white connections. Is that right?
Yeah.
The problem with doing that is they top out at about 7. Well, I don't even know if they go to 720. It might be 420. But I think it is. I think it's 720. The camera resolution is much, much lower than today's cameras. And so that's the first thing that you're going to experience. And of course, that problem is then compounded if you do any sort of digital zooming. In other words, you crop essentially the digital video to show and then stretch the remaining picture to show a specific spot or frame something up. And of course, as you alluded to, you're able to kind of move the camera around a little bit, but there's just a limit to what you're going to be able to do with that resolution. And so what I would tell you is the minimum resolution that you'd want to use in a camera for doing any sort of online streaming or broadcasting would be 1080p, 1920 by 1080. And there's a couple different ways to get there. Obviously, the best budget is no object kind of an option would be to purchase a PCI HDMI capture device that will ingest that HDMI feed over the PCI bus. A step down from that would be the Magwell USB capture, which will allow you to capture the same video, same quality, all of that, but you have to manage your USB bandwidth very carefully. But the easiest way, the easiest, most inexpensive, and if I understand your situation correctly, you would really like this to be resolved by this weekend, is to...
If at all possible. I mean, we can wait if we have to. It's working. But yeah, sooner than better.
Everything is possible. What you can do, Bruce, is you can use a Logitech C920 or C930, and this is a small portable webcam that will deliver a 1080p picture to you right over a built-in USB connection. And so you don't have to have an external capture interface like the Magwell, which adds additional cost and additional complexity. This will all come over the single USB interface. They're also nice, but because they're inexpensive, that you can put them anywhere. So maybe what would have been a single camera setup now can be a 2-camera setup or a 3-camera setup. And Bruce, what I'd like to do, because I guess this is just the night to give stuff away, if it's all right with you, I don't have a way to put you on hold, but if you can send an email to help@altaspeed.com and just say, hey, I was the guy that called, asked Noah, and Noah said he'd give me a free camera, my team will get one shipped out to you tomorrow, and you'll have it for this weekend.
Well, the funny thing is that I'm staring at a Logitech C920.
Oh,
I have
really?
one of these things.
All right. And what do you think of it?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Well, I've used it. Like I use it for my own, business conference calls that require video and that sort of thing.
Sure.
And it does very well. But in my experimentations up till now, we were putting the camera way at the back, and there's, optical zoom is terrible. Doing it from the back of the church. But now
digital zoom,
I can put the thing 10 feet. Yeah, I can put the thing 10 feet from the pulpit. So. I went with the camera first, like the camcorder first, thinking that would probably end up being better. But, what you say makes sense. I should probably at least give the webcam a shot and see if it does the trick. But I guess what you're also saying is that if I'm not going to just have a device that feeds USB directly in, I'm going to need a capture card, a decent capture card, and not just do a USB into a laptop kind of thing. Right.
It's interesting, right? If you think about the math of it, let's say, and I can't remember what the native resolution of NTSC video is. It's been too long, but. Let's say that I'm right and it's 480 lines of resolution. If you can get over twice the image quality to begin with, it's like being twice as close to the talent because you can throw half of that image away and still maintain a really solid image. So just starting with the higher resolution will get you further. But there's another solution in here. You can combine the C920 with something like a USB over Ethernet extender. Now, there is a limit to how far you're going to be able to extend a USB cable. But what these extenders do is they will allow you to use a regular Cat5 cable. It doesn't encode anything over TCP or IP, but it allows you to use a regular network cable and uses those as balance to get a USB connection from one end of a place to another.
Yeah, we actually do that for our projector.
Oh, there you go. So yeah, so you could.
Same kind of idea.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I would do. That's what I would do, Bruce, and I would give that a shot and see if that works and if that gets you. If you already have the camera, then you can give that a shot. And as I mentioned to the other guy, if you need anything for your church, you let me know. Just send an email, and my team will help you.
All right, sounds great. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate the call. 1-855-450-NOAH. That's 855-450-6624. The email, live@asknoahshow.com. Firefox has launched the Better Web with Scroll. The Firefox Better Web initiative is about bringing ease back into the browsing the web. We know that publishers are getting the short end of the stick in the current online ad ecosystem and advertising network. They make it difficult for excellent journalism to thrive, to give users what they want, which is usually quality content without getting tracked by third parties. We know that there needs to be a change, and we've combined Firefox with Scroll's growing network of ad-free sites to offer users a fast and private web experience that we believe can be our future. So, last year they announced the enhanced tracking protection by default. And anything privacy related to Mozilla, if you listen to the show, you are aware of it, because I keep my finger on the pulse of everything Mozilla does. They're just a fantastic company, and they really have the best interest of users at heart. Now, they claim that they've blocked more than 2 trillion third-party trackers to date. I just got after my team 2 days ago. I went on Firefox, and Firefox, when I went to altispeed.com, said, hey, this site is tracking you, and Firefox blocked it. And I immediately got on our internal company chat and said, what the heck is on our site, and what is tracking people, and whatever it is, kill it with fire. And it turns out it's the Twitter embed. And so we are going to be removing, or at least moving, the Twitter embed to a page inside of Altispeed. In doing this, in protecting users' privacy and standing up for the rights and needs of the users, they've done a fantastic job, but they have left the advertisers out in the cold, and they want to address that, because the truth is, to have a healthy internet ecosystem, you have to have a healthy relationship between advertisers and people who visit the websites. And you have to have and more importantly, you have to have a healthy relationship between the website owners and the people that visit the websites. And so we've got to find a way to combine all of these things without using tracking material and violating people's privacy. What good is having the open and free internet if there's no content to see? And that's the direction that we're going to head down if we continually advocate for privacy without doing any addressing of the funding model, and try to get these websites money, basically. This is what you have to do to get your privacy back. This is it, right here. The article says that I think they say this best, they can focus on quality, not clicks. Going down this path allows websites to focus on delivering quality websites and not the most clicks to a website. That's what's in you, the website viewer's best interest. That may or may not be what's in the advertiser's best interest, and that model has to change. They deliver the content that the users want. They become accountable to the users. Not what your advertisers think, not what your advertisers want, not what your advertisers want you to show customers. You care about the viewer. You care about the person who came to your site. So how do you sign up for the Firefox Better Web? To try the Firefox Better Web experience, Firefox users simply need to sign up for a Firefox account and install a web extension. As a test pilot, it will only be available to those in the United States. Now, the membership is 50% off for the first 6 months, and it's $2.50. That means after this trial ends, after the first 6 months, it's going to be $5 per month. Now, this goes directly towards to the fund publishers and writers. Early tests, they found that sites make at least 40% more money than they would have made from showing you ads. Why is that? Because advertisers, they do the throw everything to the wall and see what sticks approach, right? I don't know how many times I have ever clicked on an ad in my life, but it has to be in the single digits. I just don't click on ads. And I would imagine the vast majority of you don't click on ads because we're very busy people and we sit down at a computer because we want to get something done. And when we visit a website and all of a sudden there's all this flash and animation and things taking over the screen and swiping and sliding and whatever, it does nothing to make me want to purchase the product. All it does is make me irritated at whatever name is on my screen. I want to get back to my content. There have been times during show prep, I will literally Control-A, copy the page, open Sublime Text, dump it in there, and I'll read the site in there because I'm just not putting up with it. People are sick of it. Quote, in early February of 2019, we announced that we were exploring an alternative revenue models for the web. Before we committed to any particular approach, we wanted to better understand the problem space. The entire investigation followed a very similar arc to the work that we did with Firefox Monitor. We let the users be our guide, putting their expressed needs and concerns at the forefront of all of our work. We also tested cheaply and frequently. At each stage, we increased the level of investment, but also the clarity of the data. Users see ads, here's what they took away. Users see ads as distracting and say their online experience is broken. In the tech world, we call it breakage. Users care a great deal about supporting journalism. Many users intentionally choose not to install ad blockers because of the impact that would have on publishers. Now, I have taken a slightly different approach. I do install ad blockers because I can no longer bear the brunt of trying to care about publishers. Users want to support Mozilla because we're a nonprofit and put our users first within Firefox, a better web that supports publishers and the maker of Firefox. How the Better Web works. So Firefox Better Web combines the work that they've done with third-party tracking and protection and Scroll's network of publishers, and that makes sure that you're being delivered a top-notch experience while still supporting the publishers and directly keeping the web healthy. They use a customized enhancement tracking protection system that will block third-party trackers, fingerprints, and crypto miners, and they say that this provides additional privacy and a significant performance boost. So Scroll then provides a network of top publishers who provide their content ad-free. Now, essentially what you're doing is you're signing up for a membership. You pay the membership directly to the membership is paid directly to the publishers in Scroll's network based on the content that you read. So their hope is that the success of this model will demonstrate to publishers the value of having a more direct, uncluttered connection to their online audience. In turn, the publisher network will continue to grow and include every site that you care about so that your money can go directly for paying for the quality of journalism that you want to read. And if you're a publisher who wants to join this initiative, then contact Scroll to see how this funding model can drive the revenue for you. So the TLDR, the takeaway from this, $5, all the internet you want, none of the privacy crap that goes with it. This is unbelievably difficult for most companies. Companies exist to make money. That's what they do. In a business, in an organization, you have two columns. You have the cost and you have profits. And you talk to any business owner, and most of them will tell you that the primary decision driver of profits and losses, costs, and what the money we're going to make and the money we're going to spend, those are the two primary things that a business owner considers anytime they're making a business decision. And this is our opportunity. This is our opportunity to tell websites that, many of these people are not bad people. The advertisers, the people that run the websites, many of them are loyal to their patrons. But they have to keep the lights on and they have to keep the servers running. And Mozilla is saying we're ready to help connect web creators with the people who are willing to pay for the content. The question is, are you ready to pay for the content? Were they right? Are you willing to pay for the content? Do you value your privacy enough to pay collectively for more of it than the advertiser is? $5 a month. Or were the advertisers right all along? And you'd rather have it free from Apple. Rather have a free Apple than a cheap lunch. 1-855-450-NOAH. That's 855-450-6624. The email, live@asknoahshow.com. We'd love to have you ask your question or join us also in our interactive Mumble Room. You can join the show that way. So this week we've got a couple pieces of feedback that I want to get to. The first is a question about a DVD ripper that I'm waiting for my machine to load here. I am Marcus, 42, located in Germany and the father of a little boy. In several episodes, you've explained why and how you use local ISO files from RIP DVDs instead of streaming media. I share the goal of keeping all of my media locally, but I'm unable to rip my original discs, so they collect dust in the cupboard. There is a problem where web search insists me to drop to shady sites for Windows ripping software. libdvd CSS is installed, and Handbrake has both worked on other disks, so I suspect different copy protection measures prevent my PC from being able to read the original. Do I need a new optical drive or updated drive firmware? I hope you can help with this issue without facing legal problems, but maybe you can give me some vague hints as to look for a possible solution. Thanks for the show. You've been an inspiration and helpful to me since, forever. Well, I appreciate that, Marcus, and I appreciate you writing into the show. I have actually changed the way that I manage media in the past few years, and here's why. My natural inclination is to always choose quality over everything else. I want to preserve as much of original data as I possibly can. And what I learned over time is that there is a time and a place for that. When I purchase a Blu-ray or when I purchase a DVD, yes, I want an exact digital copy because I paid for that. I deserve to have all of the special features, all of the languages, everything in there I should be able to keep. And what ends up happening is you end up losing the disc, or you end up ripping it with an alternative piece of ripping software like Handbrake or MakeMKV, and you throw parts of the disc away. even if it's just the menus. And so I like to keep all of those things. And so every DVD or every Blu-ray that I've purchased, I have I've made an ISO of it. But what I've started to do is when I'm putting DVDs on the TV for kids, I've started to use Make MKV for that. And that allows me to do a couple of things. First of all, it allows it to come up straight in Kodi, just right off the bat, without having to do anything. It just plays. And my kids and my wife have said numerous times that they don't particularly care for the menu. They don't want the advertisements. When they click on a movie and the title of the movie, they just want that movie to play. And this and ripping the MKV separately allows that to happen. Additionally, like you, I have had issues with certain DVDs ripping. As far as software to rip the actual ISO, I would just use Brasserio or K3B. Both of those are going to be available in any Linux distro, in any repo, and you can install them. They're open source, and it will make an ISO rip of the movie, no problem. Kodi will play that ISO, no problem. When you want to start doing things like using Jellyfin and you want to sync your media library, and then maybe you want to set a VPN connection in and you want your player at your office to play the media from your house and all those kinds of things, that's where using ISOs can get a bit difficult. And so I've started to treat ISO files the exact same way that I treat photos. When I take photos with my Nikon D800, I keep all of the raw photos, all of the raw sensor data that hasn't been contaminated by Nikon's digital processor and down converting to JPEGs. I keep all of those images and I keep them in a separate folder. But I still have the camera do its best to spit out JPEGs because that's what's useful for dropping into Telegram and sharing around. And so I have the choice of doing either or. I can always go back to the original source files, but I have the finished ones. I do the same thing with video editing. I keep all of my source video footage in its raw original format, and I keep that on a NAS, but the actual produced videos are rendered down to whatever specifications I'm rendering them, and I store the MKVs separately. So I've started to treat my media ingest the same way. I still want the media files, the actual movie title, to be as high quality as humanly possible. So I want to use something like Make MKV. I don't want to use something like Handbrake. I don't want the file to be re-encoded. I don't want it to be compressed down. I want the original perfect file. But I'm okay if the MKV doesn't contain all of the subtitle tracks and all of the special features and all of the menus and stuff like that. If I ever want to go experience any of those things, I can always go back to the original ISO. But this way I have 2 copies of my media. Now, does it occupy twice as much space? Yes, it does. In fact, does it occupy 3 times as much space? Because I have my original NAS where the MKV is stored, I have the backup where it's stored, and I have the offsite backup where it's stored. And so it's occupying twice the space. But I found that to be a very convenient way to go about managing media. And again, circling back to your original question, if you're having trouble ripping the media, Make MKV, they release the software specifically to get around that encryption. You have a right to have a digital copy of the media that you've purchased, and I suggest that you do. And using Make MKV will allow you to do that because they have the latest copy protection, ways to circumvent the latest copy protection. And you have a right to do that. You purchased the disc, as I purchased the disc. Again, 1-855-450-NOAH. That's 855-450-6624. The email, live@asknoahshow.com. This comes from Steve. Steve writes in and says, in my day-to-day, I need to log into many devices over SSH. This includes servers, routers, and other kind of network gear. For years, I've been in an environment where all such devices have a properly mapped DNS hostname, and I've been perfectly happy opening whatever the default terminal window app is and typing SSH and then the hostname. I'm now in an environment where a large number of devices that I need to log into do not have DNS names, and so I need to SSH to an IP address. I need an SSH client where I can manage all of these IP addresses and associate them with a name that I can choose from a list or search for. Since I use multiple workstations and laptops, if this IP database could be automatically synced between them, it could be even better. I am mostly on Ubuntu flavors of Linux, but if said client was available for another OS, including Android, that would be better still. Any recommendations? Thanks. So the most direct answer that I can think of to your question is to use something like PuTTY. PuTTY is available for Linux, despite what some people are aware of, and will allow you to export the configuration of PuTTY. Now, I've never tried to export between operating systems, so I would assume that the Linux version will be able to import and export directly to other Linux versions, okay, but I couldn't tell you for sure if it would be able to go in between operating systems if you're going to go from, like you say, Android to Windows, back to Linux, those kinds of things. But you certainly could sync the configuration. The other thing you could do, if it really was just a matter of mapping host names, I suppose you could sync a local hosts.txt file through something like cfile. But to be honest, anytime you start monkeying that kind of way under the hood, you open yourself up to some security concerns from the standpoint that there is an understanding and an assumption at the very basic operating system level that the DNS servers and where you're getting your DNS information from is specified in the network configuration, and the local hosts file is really just for you to modify. Anytime you start saying, well, somebody got access to any one of the machines and could modify that DNS file and it would sync around to all of your other machines, they could potentially do some damage. So I would put some real thought into that before doing it. But you talk about syncing a local IP address, you absolutely could do that. Steve is in the chat room and he says he uses K3B to make ISOs of his DVD, but it doesn't work for Blu-rays. I would try Brasserio. I've used Brasserio once to make an ISO of a Blu-ray. Most of the movies that I'm purchasing still are on DVD, just for the size sake of it. If I could go from 720 to 1080 in twice the space, I would do that. But you go from 4.5 gigabytes to 20 some gigabytes per movie. And the reality is the vast majority of movies that I'm purchasing are for my kids, and I'm just not interested in storing them in that kind of quality. But when I purchase a Blu-ray, if there's some movie, Avatar, for example, I wanted in the full 1080. And when I purchased that, I was able to rip it with Brasserio. So I would give that a shot and see if that works. And if you do run into a point where you just can't save all of the ISOs because the software doesn't support it, at that point, I would start switching to make a MKV. That's kind of the direction that I'm going. Again, open phone lines for just a couple of more minutes. 1-855-450-NOAH. That's 855-450-6624. The email live@asknoahshow.com. I want to invite you to join the interactive Telegram group. I talked about the SSH question and how I looked around to see if there's a way that it could sync between operating systems. I went to the interactive Telegram group for that. I went to telegram.asknoahshow.com and I asked the people there, because we have thousands of people that are able to answer questions and willing to share their vast knowledge and expertise, and I am around there as much as I can be. And so we've developed a great little community, and I would invite you to join it. Also, as I said last week, we are trying to do our part to give you entertainment while you're at home. We want to encourage people to stay home, stay safe, especially for us that work in IT. You couldn't think of a worse environment for a virus to spread than people who go from one device that other people touch to another device that other people touch. And in the process of fixing that device, we have to touch it. And so in an effort to do that, I've asked our producer, JT, to look into some of the videos that we had from Red Hat at Red Hat Summit, which is, of course, being held virtually this year. So all of you will be able to attend it. So there's not a lot that we can report on that you wouldn't be able to get from directly from the horse's mouth, as it were. But last year's video, we had some uploading issues. And so JT has been working his tail off this week and got those remaining videos up. So Chris Wright, and you've probably heard the interviews on Ask Noah. I think we've run most of them. But Chris Wright, the Chief Technology Officer, Matt Hicks, Stephanie Chires, and Ruth Seeley. All of their interviews are up on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/MindDripMedia. I also got our latest tutorial done on the YubiKeys, and so that's going to be published this week now that we've gotten all the Red Hat stuff out. So more and more video content coming to keep you entertained while you're at home. At the end of each episode, I am in contact with other conference organizers, and we will try to keep you up to date at what conferences are happening and what's going forward. At the moment, what we know for sure is that the Red Hat Summit is being held virtually. Linux Fest Northwest in person is canceled. They are going to have some speakers that are going to present virtually, and they are going to try to have some hangout space for people for doing Q&A, so on and so forth. And so if either of those, if you were looking at traveling or travel plans, you want to make sure to understand that there's not much to attend in person. As far as we know, again, as of this date, the best that we know is that Self is going to happen. But of course, at the time that announcement came out, that they were going to for sure have Self, obviously the COVID crisis has gotten a lot worse. And to a certain degree, I think that there is a lot of liability and so on and so forth that has to be taken into consideration. And so we'll continue to stay in contact with the conference organizers and get the message out as soon as we become aware of it, when something has changed. But right now, what the entire country, really the entire world, is encouraged to do is to try to travel as less as possible, as infrequently as possible. That would be a better way to phrase that. And try to maintain your distance between other people. A side project that I'm working on the School of Hard Knocks, another podcast that I do for my part-time job over at the radio station, did a leadership episode with Ryan. That is available at schoolofhardknocks.show. I invite you to check that out. Ryan is a phenomenal leader and has done a fantastic job and shares his life journey. And my dad, I have invited him to join me for an episode on COVID-19. And so we're going to discuss the health ramifications and what he believes the future of COVID-19 looks like as a medical doctor of 32 years working in a lot of emergent situations. And all of that episode is not posted yet. It'll be available for you April 1st. Hey, if you want more information, all the things that we can't get to in the show, it's available for you at podcast.asknoahshow.com. That's where all of the articles that I reference here on the show. The Ask Noah Show continues 24/7 over at asknoahshow.com, so make sure to check that out. We'll be back next Tuesday at 6 p.m. Central. Huge thanks to JT, our producer, and Voxtel Sys for providing our phone system. This hour of the show may be over, but there's plenty more content. Again, asknoahshow.com, and check out youtube.com/MindDripMedia. Have a good week.